picking up on the fact that sometimes with these stencils that we can actually use them the wrong way round. So today really I just wanted to show you that it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It can be really annoying, it can be really frustrating if we suddenly find that we've gone to the effort and we've produced ourselves a really pretty image and we're so pleased with our blending and the colours that we've chosen, only to find that we've used the stencils the wrong way round and we can't actually die cut it. So I just wanted to show you today that there is a way out of it. It's easy to say that you can just start again and sort of cast that one aside and re-stencil it. You don't always want to do that, do you? Especially if you've taken the time. And I know I get lost with the stenciling, and maybe you've spent an awful lot of time on it because you just wanted to enjoy the process and you got carried away and you got sort of deep into your thoughts or whatever, or you've just stumbled across and you're just really happy with the colour blend that you've chosen, and for some reason or another that this particular image, you've just nailed it and it looks absolutely perfect. So, and you want to use it. It's not always fun to then sort of put it in the bin, is it? So once you've got over the frustration and you've perhaps put it aside and you've walked away from your desk and got over the annoyance of yourself and perhaps had a cup of tea or cup of coffee, you can actually come back and you can save the project. So I've got this card today. I'm using the layering stencils for the Hydrangea. So this is the card that I've made today. Let's say it's less about the card and it's more about the process really of the stenciling. I haven't stuck this down because I wanted to show you the difference. This is actually the image where I've used the stencils reversed. So not in the order that Lisa has designed and presented them to us. And what I wanted to do is just turn that over, because do you know what? It's not actually that immediately apparent when you look at a made-up card that this is actually the debossed image, as you can probably see here. But if I turn that over and just tilt that to the camera a little bit, hopefully you can see that on the reverse you are seeing the emboss. So that is the way that Lisa intended the design to be. But you can see from the front, which is debossed, that all the stenciling has worked perfectly. And if I bring in this image, this is the right way round. You can see that the way that leaves are and refer to the front of the packaging there, this is the way that it should be. And do you know what? I don't think there's a huge amount of difference between the two images. And if we turn that over on this side, on the right hand side, on the reverse, you can see we've got the deboss, and this is the reversed image. So I think that there is an absolute place to use the deboss image. And you know what? It's a really useful technique to have, because if you want the reversed or the mirror image of what you're using, particularly if it's like a wreath or something, it's nice to have those two images together. So what I'll do, I'll get into the stenciling to actually show you that stenciling with the image on the reverse like this is just as easy. Now I have done a couple of other lives in the past where I've actually used the reverse of the stencil. I haven't gone on to emboss and die cut it because I just wanted the reverse image, but I will bring those in a bit later. So at the moment I have the stencils the right way around. So what I will make sure that I do when I put them onto my Ultimate, that I will flip them. So I bring in my piece of card the right way round, let's say, and we say the right way round because this means that we can bring in our die. This is the conventional way, where the number that Lisa's given to us, so we know the order of the stencils, is readily visible on the top of the stencil. I'm going to flip it over. So this is what we mean by using the reverse of the stencil. This is where we shall use our green, and of course I'm using the Cloud9 inks and the blending sponges. Sorry, the blending brushes. So we get in and stencil. It's the same technique. Of course, you take your favourite blending tool and you take your inks and you just add your ink as you go. So I'm going to flip the stencil that way. So I'll pick up the next one, make sure I flip that over. And say I think it's actually a really useful tool, particularly if you're not too bothered about wanting to go on and emboss and die cut afterwards. I think sometimes it's really nice just to have that reverse image, particularly on some of the stencils that have less imagery on them, perhaps some of the more of the single stemmed ones, perhaps some of the single flowers. It's nice just to sort of have that variation. And if you're doing a background with these stencils and you're sort of flipping between the two, I think that's sort of what gives that really sort of random look. So I'm just going to whiz through this and say you've seen us many times sort of stenciling, and also Lisa as well on the shows. So what I'm doing isn't necessarily out the ordinary, but I'm just making sure that I'm putting that ink down. I just want you to see really that the stencils can be used this way round. So and actually I'll show you a little bit later on as well. There's a nifty little trick that I've used to actually create the background of my card using this particular stencil, this one on its own. So we can see here that we have our foliage that's gone down really nicely. You'd never know that it wasn't meant to be that way round. So next we have our florals, and I'm going to be using the spiced plum. Now let me just check that's in shot. Yeah. So I'm going to be using the spiced plum, and I'm going to put down just a really gentle layer of this initially. So this is going to be the background to the rest of our hydrangea flowers. Now I've got great inspiration for using these because just outside my windows here I've got a whole hedge of hydrangeas. They're a lovely plant, one of my favourites, and I love all the colours that come out of them. So the colours that Lisa has in her inks here are just so true to form. So that lovely purple there, which is going to be the base. So we can come in with some detailing on the petals, and I'm just going to overlay that with a pink. Now I think actually what I might do one of these days, just going off on a bit of a tangent here, I might actually try and do a white hydrangea, because I've got a white hydrangea bush out the front. It's a single one just in a pot on its own. It's so pretty. But the colours that I'm using here are the traditional ones, either the pink or the bluey colour. So I've done the pink there. I'm just going to come in with a little bit of blue, because I don't know how often you've actually looked at the hydrangea plants themselves, but within one plant you can have so many different colours, so many different coloured blooms, that you really can get away with mixing and matching your inks here. So I'm just going to put a really light layer of blue on here. I'm not going to go mad because I don't want it to overpower, but I just need it to pop just that little bit. There we are. Isn't that really pretty? So now we come on our blooms on our foreground. So I shall continue with the blue actually. Let's put quite a light layer, and this sits really nicely over the spiced plum colour. Okay, and I shall go a little bit darker. Yeah, I'll go a little bit darker with this blue. So there we are. Now we've got the detail that comes onto the two flowers, and I'm going to come back in and use the spiced plum again. Which is a lovely set of colours. And each time you stencil this, actually, it's going to come out so different. So I'm going to make sure that I get enough through the stencil there to make sure that shows up. Okay, so there we are. You can see that detailing of the flowers coming through, and just the last stencil. And you see how quick this is actually. This is one of the sets which has got probably one of the largest number of stencils. We've got 10 stencils in this one, and it's a sort of quite a hefty chunk of sort of plastic when you bring it out of the packet there. But don't be daunted by that. As you can see by this, you get through each of the layers so quick. And I think the more stencils you have, the more fun you get when you actually have that reveal and you pick up each of those stencils. I just love this point here when I know I've put the colour down and I'm just sort of anticipating what it's going to look like. And every single time I've done it, and I've used these stencils loads of times now, every single time I think, oh, isn't that good? I think it's a super way of stenciling and using ink. So there we are, you can see the image there. If I just show you against the packaging, that it is actually facing the other way round. Now it's at this point that you sort of need to sort of think about the order of things to actually get the best out of your image. We can emboss it or deboss it, and we can also die cut, but obviously not straight away. Our die cut won't sit on there, and if you think about it, we need to die cut from the reverse, but obviously we've got no reference point to do that, have we? So say, unlike if we were using them conventionally, it doesn't really matter what order you do this in. It does if you're wanting to use it this way around. Now the beauty of the embossing folders is that it is reversible. So unlike the die, this can be used either way. So now we can take our stenciled image, we can emboss or deboss. So if we line this up to the image on our embossing folder, and I will do this in real time, so hopefully I won't shake the camera too much when I use the embossing, my die cutting machine, but I did want to show you this in real time just to prove a point really. And I think sometimes it sticks in your memories a little bit better if you can actually see it happen at the time. So let me just move this aside. We don't need our Ultimate anymore. Okay, let's just rearrange my desk a little bit. So I'm just going to bring in the die cutting machine so I know what my plate combinations are for this, so I can just get that done and through. I always do double. I always go forward and then come back. It's just a habit. You don't actually need to. I think just one pass through, especially to emboss, is more than enough. Okay. So you can see already that the image lines up perfectly well in our embossing folder. So we take that out. And now if I show you, hopefully the light is able to catch that well enough. It's such a tricky thing to show you. That image is now debossed. If I turn that over, there is the emboss, which I think is just as spectacular in white actually, isn't it? But yeah, so we have our image, and now hopefully you can see where I'm going with this, because if we bring in our die, we can't die cut it like that, but we can, of course, die cut this way around. Okay, and that lines up perfectly. We have our reference points to be able to do that. So let me bring in my machine again. This time I will die cut. Now you may be thinking, but that's going to squash the embossing, and you're right, it will do. But look, I'm demoing this as a fix, and Lisa's products are so well constructed that once we've die cut this, we can then add an extra stage and re-emboss or deboss. Bring our image back, and it's die cut out perfectly. We have lost the dimension from the embossing, but we haven't lost the detail. So let me just show you that we can still see that detail there. Yes, it's a lot flatter than it was, but that can be remedied. And if we turn that over, you can see that that has die cut for us well enough to use on a project. For something that you may have created in error, I think that's a pretty a pretty usable embellishment still. I really don't think you'd have any worries using this on a card. What we can do now, we can now reuse our embossing folder. We can line this up, and I've spoken about this before, and I'm just going to turn this over and line it up so it's the conventional way. What you can actually do, you can lock this image back into the embossing folder, and you just need to make sure that it lines up with in exactly the same position as it was when you very first embossed it, and you sort of feel it lock into position. Lisa's folders have such a depth to them that it means it's really hard to show you on there, but if I slide my fingers over that now, the die cut isn't moving. It's because that is locked in position. And if you can do this, perhaps even just with the smaller of your images, and perhaps even do this on the die cuts that are the right way round, you'll see what I mean. And that will give me the confidence to put this back through my machine and just add that dimension back. And if I open that back up and take that out, I can show you again, but I think what's more impressive is when I turn that back over and you can see the detailing in white where it's embossed. You can see that there's absolutely no double lines, there's no halo effect. That's as if you just embossed it for the very first time. And I think it's, once you've got the confidence in Lisa's products that they will do this, I think that will then give you the confidence to create a mirror image. And you can see just how easy that was to create alongside something which is the conventional shape. So just because you've stenciled it perhaps in error, with the stencil the wrong way around, it really is not the end of the world. And I think it's something that you can build into your designs, because if I bring in the card and I use the one that I've just done, and now I used like the one that's the conventional way around, if I layer that up, that gives a whole new effect on the top of my card there. Now I think what I might do, and this is something that just sprung to mind when I was prepping, I think what I might do, I'm just going to snip off these stems, and I think that will enable me to layer these two up together. You see the stems aren't as messy. If I bring this one back in, the four stems I think are just fighting themselves a little bit too much. Now you can have the image just by itself. I think that is perfectly lovely in itself. But if you want to be a little bit decadent, and why not? Let's put that one on. We've taken the stems off, and we use these stems which look a lot more in keeping with the ones in the reverse sort of gone. So I think you put the reverse image at the back, you put the conventional one on top, and I think that looks really lovely. I just want to show you how to create this background. I've just used a white piece of card. So I've taken a white piece of card and I just added just a little bit of blending with my woodland moss and just the bijou brush, which gives me a really nice gentle background. And I've used the woodland moss because that's the colour that I used on the leaves of the die cut here. Now you remember I said that you can actually use one of these stencils. I'm going to go to stencil number 10, which is this one, which is like the polka dots, and I'm going to just search through, and I'm going to get the layer which has the leaves on it, like that. Now I've said this in other lives in the past, these stencils, yes, they're absolutely amazing to use as the set, as intended, but they are elements in themselves. And I've used just these two layers just to create myself a really pretty background, which has a lot of relevance to the focal image. So you can see there that you can just build up a background pattern just by moving that stencil and just using this particular layer. Now, not all layers are obviously going to lend themselves to this, but as you go through your different sets and you look at them, you think, oh yeah, that would work really nicely as a background. So you can see here, I'm just creating a really floral, a real foliage style background. You can go a lot bolder with this, but I just want to do something just really gentle. I didn't want a piece of plain card in the background. I wanted a little bit of something, but I didn't have any sort of design paper that just gave me what I needed. So you can see there, that's a really nice gentle background. And then if I come in with the two pretty colours for the front, so I come in with the pink, which is the sugar candy and the spiced plum, and bring in my blending brush again. Make sure I pick the right one up. There we are. And this, if you look, it's just going to give us polka dots. And if we just go really gently, you don't need a huge amount of ink at all. Isn't that really pretty in the background? Now, the thing will be, will you remember which sets have got these lovely layers in to do? And also, if you do that, you want to make sure that you put the stencils back together, because you don't want to be separating your sets too much. I certainly understand that you don't want this to end up in another set somewhere. But I think if you want a really sort of coordinated background, that has worked really, really well. So that's how this card came together. So you can see we have the reversed image stencil, and you put the conventional stenciled image on the top, and you see what I mean? I don't think from a distance, or for people who are not in the know, they would have no idea that this isn't how you intended your image to look like. So I think that you can create something really pretty out of what you perhaps would consider a mistake. So don't, if you can help it, perhaps let's not throw so many of our images away. And what I just wanted to show you also, this is a card that I made a couple of lives back using the crocus field. And I've stenciled the image a couple of times. This dimensional image here is the conventional way the crocuses were meant to sit. But this in the background, I've reversed the stencils, so the crocuses are facing the opposite way. And again, on the inside, they're focusing the other way. And it's something that you can actually, I think, make use of. Now, obviously, this time round, I didn't need to die cut or emboss these images, so it wasn't as much of an issue. But embrace all that the stencils can give you. Now, this is also from the live that I done last week. I stenciled these flowers to embellish one of my cards, and I was really happy with the colour. And it wasn't until just a couple of minutes before the live, when I was prepping, that I realised that I actually stenciled them the wrong way around, and I really didn't have time to do anything about it. But I just wanted to prove to you that it would work on all of Lisa's sets, not just the Hydrangea. So you can see from the packaging that this stencil has been reversed. The flowers are in the opposite positions. So if I'll just show you with one of the dies, because these do take a little bit of time to line up. So this die would cut out this flower. And if I were to do this conventionally, there's no way that I'd get this die to line up too. But if I turn that over, you can see, because I've embossed the image or used the embossing folder, I have the emboss on the reverse. I have the die, and now I can match up that die with that emboss. I can run that through the embossing folder, through the die cutter machine. I won't do it now, but you can see that now means I can use the really pretty flowers that I was hoping to use at the time. I can now still use them, but we've got there in a slightly different way. Hopefully that's just shown you and given you a little bit of confidence that there is always a workable way round to actually use all of the images. And do you know what, in effect, it actually doubles the value of Lisa's products. If anyone has got any mishaps and you've perhaps kept them aside, put them in the group. Let us know how you get on, if you are able to sort of salvage them and reuse them, even if just out of curiosity alone for yourself. Just see if you can give it a go, and just you may find yourself with a whole set of new embellishments to use on all your cards. So hopefully that's made sense. If you've got any other questions, do put them into the group and we'll do our best to answer them for you. So thanks to everybody who's joined me today, especially those people who've joined us for the first time from Canada and from Australia. It's really lovely to know that we've got the support of people from everywhere. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone, this afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.